Probably there are a couple of them. The first would be a few years ago when I was in Seattle and I sat in a boardroom, not dissimilar from many boardrooms that I go into, and we worked over the weekend with a company that's known well, Amazon.com, and the executive leadership of that company was there working with the CEO, Jeff Bezos, who I admire greatly. And as we sat and talked about a major action that was required in their company, the downsizing of their organization, the first such downsizing in its history, to help it realize a pro forma profitability in the company so that it would have greater credibility with stakeholder groups like the investor and financial community. There was a great conversation that existed around how do we reduce our headcount in these key locations and shut down major centers that we've developed in recent years for distributing our products and break covenants not only with employees but also in these communities where we've gotten easements and the kinds of things that are required to operate, the commitments that we've forged in these communities. How do we do that and still hold true to our promise? And we sat for a minute and Jeff Bezos said something that's never been lost on me. He looked at that group of people and he said, I want you to remember one thing. We're going to be true to our values. And you have to keep in mind that you always want, in terms of reputation, people to say about us, when I'm not in the room with this individual or around this company, people are always consistent in their view about the organization. Your reputation is what people say about you when you're not in the room with them. And I always remember that because it's so true. We want to be true to those values and have people say, regardless of what happens in the life of our company or an individual, we're doing the right thing in that work. The other person was the head of HR for Boeing. And as I was doing work for Boeing in Seattle and we were looking at their distribution of their operating sites and their manufacturing centers, I went in one day to talk with them about a major labor relations issue because they had contracts coming up. They were very difficult contract discussions that were going to result in strikes in their company. And he looked at me and said, Keith, you need to remember one thing about your work, and it's a good lesson for any young professional. Your work is not here in the corporate office. Your work is out in the centers where people do work, where you can see them interact, you can hear from them directly and understand what really is at the heart of their work and their beliefs about the company. And so going out where we do our work, remaining consistent around corporate values or the values that we hold personally dear are two very important practices, and those two men have been at the heart of a lot of the work that I do when I think about those belief statements.